Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello and welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey Stafford here, joined by Rory O'Neill and Jackie Tyrrell. How are you getting on, lads?
Good, Jackie. Very good. January's nearly over. We're all happy.
I think he said Jackie. I think he meant Jackie Hurley. He's institutionalised. He's used to saying hi, Jackie. I'm here instead of Jackie today, by the way, because Jackie
Apologies.
She's otherwise engaged. And just to inform you all that this is the hurling podcast on the Thursdays this year, 2025. We're going to try splitting the football and hurling. So they'll be on the same feed. You'll find them in the same place. They'll just be two separate podcasts because hurling snobs like Jackie Tyrrell are afraid they might hear somebody discussing Gaelic football and it'll sully their ears, and vice versa for football. They're out there, lads. There's people who don't love both our beautiful codes. Shocking, I know. Which is a good way to lead into the first match of the weekend, which is Cork and Limerick on Saturday evening down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. And not for the first time, this fixture has led to some acrimonious exchanges on social media over TV coverage or lack thereof. Won't bore you with the details, but basically TG Cahir had the late match and decided to show Donegal in Dublin, which is a tasty fixture. RTÉ had the early game. Cork and Limerick didn't want to go early because they didn't want to clash with the rugby. Also a legitimate concern. So it wasn't on air anywhere, but TG Cahir are going to stream it now. So all is well that ends well. And let's be honest, Jackie, after the two encounters last year, I think this is a match that needs to be seen.
Yeah, look, fair play to TG Cahir. They came to the rescue in the end. This is just a game that people need to see. If you just look back at last year, the All-Ireland semi-final, the round-robin series, the atmosphere, the colour, it's just an amazing fixture that just, it always delivers. And I'd expect the same this weekend. People have voted with their feet already. There's huge kind of confidence and belief in Cork, and rightly so, considering how they turned over Limerick twice, and not too many teams can say that. And there's a kind of a resilience building in Cork in terms of it doesn't really matter who takes to the field. They've all these new guys that came through last year. There's another backdrop of more coming. Padraig Power, these guys all putting their hand up. So look, everything seems to be going well down in Cork, that neck of the woods. Limerick, a lot of uncertainty off the back of last year, losing Nicky Quaid. Feels like a new dawning for Limerick and maybe a new direction in this team Cummins and a new feel to it. So look, we're going to, for the first time, get eyes on them, what they're going to bring this year. I'm sure they want to get a victory down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So it's just teed up to be an absolute belter of a game for the second round of the league, and for the whole hurling nation, and even people who don't like hurling. We just can't wait.
The people listening to the other podcasts, yeah. Rory, I think, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, as we know, as you know anyway, I'm sure all Cork people know, it did win Pitch of the Year last year, that coveted accolade. So hopefully we won't be dealing with what we saw in Pearse Stadium last weekend, which was basically look like a cabbage patch. Even the weather's to be dry, I think. It's not to be too windy. It looks like, everyone says, it's winter hurling, etc. I think that mightn't quite be the case here. Like the sod and everything in Páirc Uí Chaoimh should lend itself to like a pretty quick game of hurling.
I think it will. I mean, the pitch is always in fantastic condition. When it first opened, actually, when the stadium first opened, they had some issues, and I think they took the decision, which decommissioned the stadium in its infancy. It had only just opened, to relay the pitch once again, just to try and get it right. And look, it's as good a surface as you're going to get anywhere, including Croke Park. So I don't think there'll be any issues on that front from a winter hurling perspective. I think if you go back to last year, Jackie was down there for Cork and Kilkenny. I mean, what a game we got on that occasion. And I think the pitch played a big factor in that. The atmosphere, everything around it, the size of the crowd will be the place will be hopping on Saturday night. Would expect a massive crowd down there. I think, look, the issues around the TV coverage, I suppose, are fairly well documented. One issue that I would potentially just look to maybe I wouldn't necessarily say set the record straight, because I'm sure Cork County Board are well capable of speaking for themselves, but there's a bit too much made around the debt, for my money. No pun intended. Like, Cork will deal with the debt. The debt will be sorted. I don't necessarily think by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, they're taxing the clubs now anyway, so that's the start.
Well, look, but Mikey, that's what happened back in 1976 when Páirc Uí Chaoimh was built the first time round. There was a levy. No, it was probably £5 back then as opposed to £2,000. But so what? Like, you know, most of the GA clubs around Cork would feel that like that's part of their duty and if that helps to service it, if you've 250 clubs all paying €2,000 and that's $500,000 a year, and if that helps to offset some of the costs, if it supports the county board, if it supports the teams, plus you have the Kilbarry site, which I'm sure will be resolved over the next 12 to 18 months once the judicial review is dropped. That'll put another big hole in it. And then, you know, look, the debt doesn't determine everything and every decision. The Cork, it's obviously a factor in the background. But I think sometimes more is made about it than really what it means for the officers involved in a practical sense.
Yeah, well, you'd like to think it isn't. It isn't colouring every decision they make. All right, that wouldn't be a healthy situation for anybody. Anyway, Jackie, to matters on the pitch. Obviously, this is because we've got these 7-team leagues now. There's one team fallow each week, and it was Limerick last year, who are probably, you could argue, the team that people are most curious to see this year, and they're the ones we've had to wait to see. Actually, Waterford in Division 1B as well, you can make an argument for. We'll get to them later.
They played each other last weekend as well, Mikey, the two teams, Limerick and Waterford.
So, Jackie, I guess there's some decisions that have been made. Obviously, Nicky Quaid's season-ending, year-ending knee injury. You know, it's interesting around the captaincy being taken away from Declan Hannon. Do you get a sense that John Kiely is ready to build Limerick 2.0 here? Because as the case has been, we've made it both as a positive and a negative for the last few years. You know, the Limerick 15 that have won these All-Irelands has been very consistent. The Limerick 20 or 21 who've won those All-Irelands has been pretty consistent. And you'd wonder whether there's a fear of Limerick going down the, shall we say, the Pep Guardiola Man City route here and ending up with a team that is aging before his eyes when he can't fix it. The talent is there. Everybody can see that with Limerick. But as you know from Kilkenny, it's not always as simple as just chuck in all the young lads and everything will be rosy. It's a process, and it's something that needs to be done gradually, I imagine.
Yeah, look, he used the word curious, and it's definitely a curious time for Limerick supporters. And it's probably the first time that John Kiely's really challenged in terms of the year that's just gone by. It wasn't good enough, so he can't go back with the same 15. He can't go back with the same ideas. He needs to come with something different. So that poses a question on how ruthless he is. And he has been very loyal to a lot of his lieutenants that have served him really well. You mentioned Declan Hannon, he was one, but he is one that struggled last year in that All-Ireland semi-final against Clare. Shane Barrett dragged him everywhere, exposed him so much that Declan Hannon ended up in the second half left corner back. We don't see that. Interesting, Kyle Hayes was positioned at centre-back again Waterford the weekend. And in that game against Cork, he was moved to that position. Cotton O'Neill has spent some time there. William O'Donoghue spent the second half of the challenge match last weekend. The fact that he's moved the captaincy on suggests to me that is one area of concern that Limerick have next year and are going to address it. Will it mean Declan Hannon being in that sixth position? We'll have to wait and see. Will they try to protect him a bit better, or will they just go, the time has come for a new direction, a new captain, a new six, and they have options in there? I would suggest he would go with the latter. Mm-hmm. Brian Cody used to do it every so often. He would just cut guys. There was no loyalty. There was, you won an All-Star 2 years ago, hurler of the year. It was just, what's the best thing for the team?
Jackie, lots has changed in hurling, you know, tactics, possession game, hand passing, where scores are. I think the one thing everybody still agrees on is six is probably the most important position on the field.
Oh, I would say cornerback is, Mikey, but that's just me. The ability to take out their most important attacker, I think, is a very important tool. But look, six is a pivotal role. You command the position from there. Like goalkeeping, you're almost like that quarterback where you can drop, you can step up. So it's a hugely influential position, and one Limerick have got right for the best part of 7, 8, 9 years. And Declan Hannon has been unbelievable. But look, the question is, has the time come and passed now? And it's only natural. We all slow down. We get a little slower downstairs as well. And if you go back to when Kilkenny bet Limerick in 2019, All-Ireland semi-final, Declan Hannon got whipped early doors. TJ Reid was orchestrating the whole game. So it's a hugely pivotal position. But you also look at last year, Cork attacked and targeted that Limerick full backline and got huge traction early with Brian Hayes causing havoc on Mike Casey. So they'll have to look at that area as well. You're also going to have maybe a new goalkeeper this year come championship. Will Nicky Quaid be back? Hard to see it. So it's going to be an interesting time at the spine of that Limerick defence, and how they show up. And look, they have some great games, the trial guys in it. But they have ready-made replacements in Kyle Hayes and William O'Donoghue to have done it on big days at the 6th position. And then it's the impact of, who fills those spots. So it's a very curious time for Limerick. Also an exciting time.
Yeah. Rory, before we get on to talking about Cork, there's probably debates in the forward department as well in Limerick, which is obviously like all divisions of the Limerick team. There haven't really been concerns, but John Kiley has done a bit of tinkering. You would wonder whether we are going to see a lot of changes this year, or whether he is, he will show loyalty to those, those 6 who have delivered so much.
Yeah, I didn't. Not really. Gambling isn't my thing, but I haven't really checked the form guide. I wouldn't be surprised if Limerick are still favourites to win the All-Ireland from this juncture. They may be joint favourites, who knows? And they have been on the go for a long time. They have pretty much used a lot of the same personnel. If you go back and you take out the 2018 All-Ireland hurling final, their big breakthrough year, I'd say 12, 13, and that's 7 years ago now. And 7 years, Jackie might be able to attest to this and tell us a little bit more, but 7 years is a long time in intercounty hurling. And then you throw in a couple of club campaigns, particularly for, we'll say, the Napier-Shig lads who might have been going quite long into winter hurling, etc. So look, I think it is a period of discovery for Limerick. I think they have obviously found a couple of new Cahill O'Neill, Colin Coughlin, you have Shane O'Neill. I think Adam English is probably going to push his way. Donegal, I've got to get this one right. Is it Dálig? They're at, he had, like, Limerick have been, well, they might not necessarily have been winning a lot of the underage titles over the last couple of years. They've been extremely competitive, and I mean extremely competitive. So the quality of the player that they're producing from the underage ranks is going to give him options. The problem, I suppose, with modern day intercounty hurling now and how abrasive and physical it tends to be is it takes just a year or two to develop the man strength, if nothing else, and just the physical prowess to be able to cope and deal with, the raw physicality of it all. So I think from that point of view, what would we see from potentially both teams on Saturday night? I'd say you're probably going to be looking at 6 or 7 or 8, maybe even 9 of your regulars, with a sprinkling then of lads given opportunities just to see if they can stake a claim and put more pressure on and create a higher level of competition as the league evolves.
Cork then, Jackie, last week, not that they needed to, but they included 9 of their starters from the All-Ireland final against Wexford. They probably could have. Oh God, no, I won't. I won't be mean. I don't want to talk about it.
Wexford are missing. Wexford are missing.
I know. But it could be a dark decade. It's one of those flips where the Wexford football team might, hurlers might start, kind of opted to play football. But that happens once every 20 years. It depends on the position of the moon and Jupiter and stuff like that. Anyway, Jackie. So they had 9 starters last week, but it was interesting to see the Fitzgibbon derby last night. UCC against, can't say CIT anymore, MTU Cork. MTU were missing Kieran Joyce and Alan Connolly. Wasn't really explained why, which is interesting. So you'd wonder whether they're being held back for Saturday night. But if Cork were going with 9 starters against Wexford, you'd imagine they might up that slightly for Limerick.
I'm not sure they will, Mikey, because they're an embarrassment of riches down there in Cork, and Pat Ryan will want to have got 1 or 2 to add that competitive nature to that group. So I think he'll like to try find out a bit more about some of those new guys, the Padraig Powers of this world. I'm not sure if Declan Dalton is missing, so maybe his hand is forced a bit on that in terms of his suspension. But I think, like, Cork don't really need to win this. They've beaten Limerick twice last year. They're not emotionally scarred by this Limerick team. If they get beaten the weekend, yeah, they'll hurt a little bit, but it's not pivotal. What's pivotal is that they continue to build that group, continue to build new guys in that team. Their full back line is probably a little bit light there. You might expose some guys there to see if they can stack up in the acid test against Limerick. So it's not crucial from that point of view. Like if you take a Kilkenny from that point of view, Kilkenny would probably need to beat Limerick because there's that continuous beating mentality that Limerick have over them. So Cork don't have that damage, and they can beat them in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they can beat them in Croke Park. So I'm more interested in the Limerick side of the house just to see. But Cork are building nicely, and I know Pat Ryan will be driving it home. He'll want to win the weekend and all that, but I don't think it's detrimental to this group. The spine of the team last year, if you look at the two downies, a 3 at 6, Fitzgibbon in midfield, Brian Hayes was a huge addition and was meant to be very good the weekend against Wexford as well. So I think he's just going to continue to build and expose a couple of more new guys. Darragh O'Sullivan, for me, the Ballinhastic guy, I liked what I seen over him in the under-20s. And I spoke to Pat Ryan recently. Although he lacks in height, he's very dynamic. He's very your modern-day cornerback. I'd love to see him being thrown in the weekend now and see how he goes on maybe a Shane O'Brien or an Aaron Gillan, one of the Caseys. It'd be great exposure from just to see who he is, because he's shown a lot for me. But one thing that stood out for me last year, Cork are now a big physical team. The two downies, Tim O'Mahony, Declan Dalton, Seamus Harnedy, that narrative of them being light and maybe an easy team and physically not robust enough, that's gone. This is a different Cork setup.
100%. So Jackie says, Pat Ryan should keep experimenting a little bit during the league. I see, which one of them? It was Ben O'Connor in the Examiner today. Rory's kind of saying, no, it's time
transition period is
time
over.
for a settled team. But as Jackie says, there's an embarrassment of riches down there. Whatever is 500,000 divided by 2,000 is how many clubs there are. There's that. I know that more football, but there's a lot of players in Cork. And Pat Ryan had no pre-season really to look at them. He has to use the league to keep looking at these players. There was probably, of the 30 starting last night in that Fitzgibbon game, 20 odd of them are probably from Cork and a close to inter-county standard hurlers. Like, there is a lot of young talent down there, and the league's only chance to look at it, isn't it?
Yes, I don't think he'll take too many chances, just given the nature of the opposition on Saturday night at home in front of, we already mentioned the size of the crowd. I think they'll want to put on a show. I don't think they'll want Limerick coming down, getting any notions either that, they can come down to Cork and bully Cork in any shape or fashion. You mentioned about young players coming, and look, this isn't necessarily Cork exceptionalism. There's even better coming again. They're hotly fancy to win the Minor All-Ireland with a very strong bunch. You mentioned about the Fitzgibbon Cup and the two teams that played last night. I think there's about 14 or 15 of the top players there that will probably form part of the under-20s panel, which will again go very close. And we're unlucky not to win the Munster Championship last year, but bar for a weird decision around a goal that everybody could see except the umpire. So I think, an embarrassment of riches certainly coming through from the underage ranks. I think, though, there's a huge difference between that and senior inter-county hurling. I think the big thing for Pat is looking at the lads that are ready, the lads that are physically ready, mentally ready, and the lads that actually, because look, again, not to go back to Cork exceptionalism, but there is a world of difference in playing for Cork and winning for Cork. And that is a huge difference. And that's where they're probably, what Ben mentioned, you can only be in transition for so long. Pat is in his third year in the job. He will obviously have one major eye on the summer. We saw the fixtures come out yesterday in relation to the Munster Hurling Championship. They're going up to the All-Ireland champions in their very, very first game. So everything will be focused on that date, I would imagine. And Saturday will be a massive stepping stone towards establishing a proper plan and roadmap ahead.
Yeah, it's great, Jackie. And we're 2 weeks into the season and we're already getting proper Cork confidence. Some might say cockiness. Rory will say confidence.
I think Jackie, if you were picking your All-Ireland contenders, they're in there, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Limerick, Clare and Cork probably are the top three, and you would have to fancy one of those three to go all the way. I just would.
He's talking about a decade of dominance there now. Really, he's talking about what's coming behind.
Three in a row in the bag.
We get one now. We'd be happy enough.
Yeah, but we are in the second game of the year.
That's right.
We also have to understand that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I get the whole thing, but it's not as if Cork flattered to deceive last year. They came to the party, brought Clare to extra time, and were so close on it. This is a developed team and well on the journey in terms of Pat Ryan. But it's the second game of the 2025 campaign. You can't be rocking out with 15 of your starters. There has to be an element of exploring things. And to my point, it's not as if it's essential that they beat Limerick this weekend. They've turned Limerick over twice last year. So, yeah, they'll want to win. Yeah, Cork people want to win in their back garden. But they also need to expose these guys and learn stuff this weekend. Because one thing we learned, the Munster round robin is absolutely vicious, and he's going to need 20 and another 5 backing those up to navigate through that championship. And by God, you'll get a great test, and you'll know after the game on Saturday night who's ready for that or who's not.
Yeah. There's obviously 6 games in the top 2 divisions this weekend, but actually the other game I really wanted to have a look at, I think, it's the other team kind of making their seasonal bow, Rory, and it's another Saturday night game. It's Waterford travelling the short distance to Carlow. And after we talked about, we didn't, Wexford's shortage of hurlers. There's no hurlers left in the southeast of Ireland, I think,
absolutely
basically.
decimated.
Waterford, now, Austin Gleeson's back this year, but he's not back for the early rounds of the league. They're missing Tita Burke, Darragh Lyons, Conor Prunty, Con Dunford, Jack Fagan, Colm Lyons mentioned already, and Neil Montgomery.
I think one of the Bennetts is missing there as well. I don't think you mentioned him.
No, I didn't.
Is Stephen? I think Stephen is out certainly for the short term.
Jesus, Jackie. Well, at least Keith Rossiter had a year to get to kind of know his strong panel. Peter Queeley's coming in now, and he's working with like bare bones.
I'd say Peter Queeley and Keith Rossiter might bring their hurling helmet and boots this weekend because they could go both. We might even see John Milan for Waterford because they're both in on the ground in both counties. And, particularly Wexford, where even you go back to Darragh Egan a couple of years ago when they got bet by Clare in the All-Ireland quarter-final, and his post-match interview was just like, we just ran out of bodies. We've just run out of bodies. And Wexford have always been running on an 18, 19-man group, really, with all due respect. And that hasn't changed. And now they're down the whole nucleus, the spine of their team, and they're really hurting. Waterford the same as well. So look, it's going to be it depends on timelines in terms of when these guys are back. I believe Leachin may be back this weekend in the fold for Wexford. Don't know how game ready he is. Waterford the same. It's going to be a challenging couple of weeks and months. And look, maybe the time for them now is probably, to start thinking, where are we developing our panel, because they just haven't got those bodies to be able to absorb those hits. Like if Kilkenny lost the volume of players that Wexford lost, they would be hurting. They'd probably have a better panel to bounce back, but it's going to be a challenging couple of weeks for those 2 counties, and there could be a few heavy beatings along the way.
The only thing though, Mikey, one thing you would have to give Waterford maybe... they're
in the second division for a start.
Absolutely. That's exactly the point I was going to make. I actually think it's a big help to them and a big benefit to be in Division 1B or whatever they call it now, Division 2.
It's called Division 1B, but I'm going to be calling it the second division.
They should just call it, do that.
Yeah, they really should.
I think that's actually a good place because, look, I know they're heading to Carlow. Carlow had a very good result last weekend to nick a draw against Offaly.
Very good in the second half, supposedly.
Yeah, but I do think from a Waterford perspective, when you're down that many players as well, it's an opportunity that you're going to have to bring some lads in. And I think when you're playing in that less fraught environment that Division 1A is, and that sort of, meat cooker that Division 1 is, I think that'll probably help him develop the panel and flesh it out a little bit while not being exposed to a certain extent, build confidence, give lads game time, and maybe find a couple of players before a lot of his mainstays come back. That's probably the only caveat from a Waterford perspective, and a difficult job for Peter Queeley, no doubt.
Yeah. I'll let you go now in a second, Jackie. Just, we have to let you mention Kilkenny. They're hosting Galway. I'm still struck by what I saw from Galway below in Wexford Park last year in the Leinster Championship. They were bizarrely bad, is the only way you could really describe them. They didn't start well last weekend. Micheál Donoghue has a job of work to do. He knows every hurler in Galway probably inside out is the one advantage he has. But they still, everybody's experimenting in the league, but when you've had a good 2024, it's easier to experiment. Galway are one of the teams who had a year to forget, and like beyond the result, which I think most people would be tipping Kilkenny to win this game, but I think Galway hurling fans will just be wanting to see something, a bit of promise, a spark, something, won't they?
They will. They want to be seen a lot more, not to see in the weekend. Now, you do have to weigh up the fact it looks like Tipperary have gone hard in terms of their training and application, and they visibly seemed a lot fitter and a lot sharper. So Liam Cahill has probably
that's the Liam Cahill way.
Yeah, it is, and we know he goes hard early in the year. Micheál O'Donoghue has a track record of doing really good jobs with team. We've seen he landed in All-Ireland with Galway. How many managers couldn't do that? We've seen the bounce. He got out of Dublin last year. Fair enough, the Leinster final didn't go well, but in terms of development, he had a decent year. I think Micheál O'Donoghue will get this team back, but you could be looking at 18 months, 2 years before it is, because we have seen Henry went with the tried and trusted guys of that All-Ireland winning team, and it didn't work out for him. And I don't visibly see young guys that you can put into that team straight away. So he's going to have to dig out a few guys. There was a few new names played the weekend. They're going to need time. Look, I don't think Galway are really going to be at it this year, but I expect it to be a rebuild that'll take more than 1 year for them to really be back competing at maybe a Leinster final and All-Ireland semi-final. So look, for Galway's point of view, they'll expect to see an awful lot more. Going to Kilkenny will be difficult this weekend. Kilkenny had a good win last weekend. But look, he still has some key guys to come back into that fold. But he probably just needs some of them pretty soon now, just to strengthen that up and maybe get the spine right and sprinkle it with some of the new lads. But Micheál O'Donoghue is a really good manager, and he normally gets it pretty right.
And Mikey, just one thing before Jackie goes. Kieran's College on top in Leinster schools once again. Jackie, I just want to ask you, would you have fancy taking a penalty?
Jeez, I wouldn't, Rory, not at all. I mean, what a game.
Penalty shootout, incredible, huh?
Unbelievable.
Did you get to see it?
I got to see bits and bobs of it. I was working yesterday, but it was absolutely an unbelievable game by all accounts. The level of talent from both sides. We've a lot of guys from our club involved. I know you have a similar competition in Munster. I can't remember the name.
I've not heard of it.
No,
what's it called again?
And we don't want to hear it,
or something.
Yeah, something like that. But look, Kieran's, they served up a classic to go to penalties.
I heard it was unbelievable. Yeah.
And even it was in Nolan Park. To see both the students there and the atmosphere they create, that's what the magic is of colleges hurling, and the level of skill and some of the scores I've seen was off the chart. So big one for Kieran's to win.
Okay, thanks, Jackie. We'll be chatting to you next week. Rory and Jackie will be the other Jackie will be back on Monday to review the weekend. And obviously you can keep across all the hurling action on RTÉ Radio 1, the RTÉ website and RTÉ News app, and of course League Sunday on Sunday night. And the football podcast will be available on the same feed as here. We're chatting to Kieran Whelan now about the big ball code. So don't worry, we haven't forgotten it. How could we forget it? Jackie, thank you very much. Rory, thank you very much. Good luck. Goodbye.